Good morning.
Good evening.
I collided with the wall.
You did.
Good afternoon. Yes.
Yeah. That's how you know. That's how you know we're live. Smashing into walls and accidentally starting the stream on the wrong scene.
Yeah. Declan was like, I'm just gonna put us on the
Hold.
little holding stream. I was like, oh yeah, I'll refresh this. It's like, I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at myself. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for, we rarely actually say the name of the show, Ben and Declan on a Roll, or as my wife called it, Ben and Declan rolling with dice. She was like,
yep.
That was the name she gave it.
My husband calls it that show you do with Ben. Yep. Well, and then surreptitiously during the week, he has recast me, and now my foster cat is now going to be doing this stream with you. So when he's done in makeup, I will obviously excuse myself, and Casper can take over if that's okay with you.
These are all just trial pilots.
Yeah.
See how the audience reacts. Do focus groups, and then one of us might get the can.
One of us will not be on a roll. How's your week been, man?
It's been good. I was, after 18 months of being on the you can sit your driving test waiting list, they finally were like, come do a driving test. And I haven't driven in 16 to 18 months. So I've crammed a lot of lessons. I crammed a lesson today. So I was out in the roads. So if you're around the Dublin area, you see me in a big red airport driving school car. Stay clear. It's for your own safety.
I am sorry in advance.
Yes. Yeah. Did a couple of things. Yeah, I was all right. I was okay on the roads after all that time. I'm still okay at reversing around corners, still okay at 3 points turns, not great at braking. And that's probably the most important part.
Generally, I've heard, I'm just after getting my provisional license as well. I'm going to hold off on the lessons and booking the test thing until I come back from my honeymoon.
Yeah. That sounds good. I would recommend not doing what I did, which is I booked my test before doing my mandatory lessons, and apparently that's what took so long on the waiting list. They were like, well, we got to wait for this clown to do his mandatories. I thought I was getting ahead of myself. I was like, but no, only after the portal has all 12 lessons logged in is a good time to book. So this is the kind of show where you can come here for life advice about how to drive if you're learning how to drive in Ireland, but also how to prepare for your driving test.
Yes, that's what this whole episode is about. Ben and Declan prepare for the driver theory test. No, we are actually, if you caught the last show or you watched the VOD, you will know that we were talking about what to do when you don't prep for a session. Or how to kind of get away with not prepping. Tonight's episode, we want to talk about the opposite of that, and how to prepare a session. We have an interview with Steve Bennett from Dungeons and Naggins, and I was lucky enough to get to sit down with Steve to talk about the board game, the show, the podcast, and kind of how he prepares all of that. And then I'm going to chat to Ben about what he does, because Ben's a DM, and
do DM sometimes.
He's been known to.
Yeah. Rarely, but I do it.
And he does it incredibly well. You can sit there and be humble all you like. I'll brag for you. He does it incredibly well. I've stolen stuff off of Ben. Sorry.
Well, I've probably stolen.
I've been inspired by Ben. Is the nice way of
Hello, everyone in chat. The prompt for today's episode is: we're wondering how you prepare as a DM or player for your games. Players also important in there. Do a little player prep. It's not all on the DM's shoulders, so. Why don't you let us know in chat if you're watching along, if you do anything, any rituals, even if it's just go for a walk, throw in a playlist, have a shower, those kind of things. Yeah. Which is my one for players.
I love a playlist prompt. I playlist for lots of things. But before we get into what Ben and I do for prepping sessions, let's. Oh, actually, no. Before we go to the interview, there's a couple of things that I have to mention at the top of the show. The first one being, you may have seen it you may have seen it on our social media if you follow us. If you follow D8 Dungeon and Homebrew Quest, have been very kind to share it on their platforms too.
Did I? Oh, I might have.
You did. No, you did. You did.
Okay, good.
You better have been. But
I think I did. I'm almost certain.
You did. No, you did. We are in the. I keep saying in the middle of. We are organizing. We're well on our way into organizing this year's D8 Dungeon Drive. And if you're sitting there going, what the hell is a D8 Dungeon Drive? Allow me to very quickly explain it. It is 2 of the most chaotic, fun, amazing, hilarious. Did I say wonderful?
You haven't yet.
Okay, well, it's wonderful.
Wonderful.
It's wonderful as well. Weekends in my calendar personally, where we D8 Dungeon hosts numerous amount of players and DMs from all over the world to raise money for charity. And Amber from D8 Dungeon and myself are already kind of in the throes of getting it going. And if you're like, oh man, that sounds cool, I'd like to get involved, I want to DM, I want to be a player, I want to help organize in the background, then you head on over to our Discord server, because that's where we have dropped the application form early. So it's kind of anyone that's over on the Discord server, we kind of know you and we want to work with you and we have always had fun with you, so you kind of get first dibs. And then we're going to open it up to general release at the end of this week. And we already have a good few players, and the people who apply early will get first dibs on games. That's the way we want to kind of work it. So if that sounds like something you'd be up for doing, great. I also want to quickly mention, because we haven't mentioned them before on this stream, we have some wonderful pals over at Mystery Dice Goblin. And
yes,
they are purveyors of all sorts of D&D, TTRPG goodies, dice, accessories, enamel pins, you name it, they have it. And they are kind enough to provide us with a discount code. It's just D8. And if you use that code at the checkout, you get 15% off your order, and we get a portion of that sale. And you're like, well, what the hell do you do with all that money? Well, it's not a lot of money, but we use it to...
Hair dye.
Hair dye. It's just hair dye and cat food.
Yes, yeah. I wasn't bored. I was looking to see if I had a pouch nearby of mystery dice from Mystery Dice Goblin. I didn't. So it's somewhere in this room. There is 2 pouches of them.
I actually, that is...
Oh, good.
No, but not nearby, in the other room.
Oh.
I would have to get up and leave. Which I shan't be doing live on stream. Mm-hmm. But we've... Yeah, if you use that code at...
He's not wearing pants.
I'm wearing shorts.
Well, I tell you.
Party business up front, party on the bottom. Nope, that's out there now. Don't clip that. But those are the 2 things we want to mention very, very quickly. While we are, while you're browsing, might I suggest have a listen and have a watch of this interview with I got to do with Steve Bennett. It starts off very weird because I wasn't sure who was going to introduce it. Ben, do you want to introduce it so then it's not weird?
Okay. You did the interview.
Oh no, I know, yeah, but it starts off really weird. It was a weird opening.
Okay.
Trust me, you'll see.
All right, I feel like I'm being set up.
You're not.
But yes, please do enjoy the interview with Steve. You might also know Steve from Mob Theatre Dublin. He's there every Thursday. He has a show coming up next week, a live Dungeons and Dragons show. So the guys, as I talk about that, you could also be looking into booking tickets if you're in and around the Dublin area, or you just like coming up on a Thursday. And we've both had the pleasure of playing along with Steve at some live events around Ireland. So D&D Era, the D&D in the Castle that myself and Declan and Steve did a couple of weeks back. Keep an eye on your social channels for that news, because you might be able to play with Steve. And if we're lucky, we might try strong arm Steve into joining the drive to see if we have to ask him. So don't hold us to it. We'll ask very nicely. We'll put on our nicest voices. But until then, just to get you excited about all the places you can see Steve live, here's where you can see him live on a stream, pre-recorded right now.
I'm not sure who introduced the interview. Maybe maybe it was me. In which case, thanks, Declan. But if it wasn't, and it was most likely Ben. Ben, thank you so much. I am joined this evening by Steve Bennett from Dungeons and Naggins, and hopefully, we are past the technical issues, Steve, and you can still see me, and I'm still here, and I'm not dead.
Everything's good.
Great, good, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Um, I, okay. I got to start with something. Steve contacted D8 Dungeon a couple of months ago about his Kickstarter, his upcoming Kickstarter at the time for a TTRPG inspired card game. I think is that the fairest way to there
That's
it is.
fair enough. Yeah, it's for
Yeah.
people who want to do that type of thing but think it's too complicated, it's got too many rules and it takes too long and you need to gather too many people. It kind of, anyone who's listened to or watched those podcasts where people actually play D&D together, and this is if a lot of those, the actual structure of trying to get all those people together to do all that stuff is tough. My one's like a cheat code to do it real quick, I think. I think that is what you said. TTRPG inspired board game, maybe.
TTRPG inspired board game. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
There's
is.
no board. I don't know if I was allowed, and I did
the
a
table.
vote.
The table is a.
The table is the board, is what some people said, even though it's mostly cards with some tokens, but the dice as well. I thought card game made it a disservice, and people would say, "No, I won't buy that because that's just like I have a pack of cards."
You sent us kind of an early version of the game to play, and for us to check out. We did a video, and and again, oftentimes when you see those, like, oh, here's a group of people that have a thing together, and look at them. Oh, look, they're having so much fun playing it. I can tell you straight away, Steve, that was the most fucking stressed we have ever been as a group around a table playing a D&D type game, and
Right.
like we've been at this for 4 fucking years.
Right.
We were you can't see because it's all obviously edited. We were fucking screaming at each other. Combat in your game is very, very straightforward. See how I just circle that right back.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Let me get you a random enemy card I can look at. You can tell me what you're talking about. Here we go. Cowboy Builder. Cowboy Builder was up top of the list on a lot of these.
Oh, like, see,
I'm doing house stuff at the moment. I have a really nice builder, and everyone's been mostly really lovely so far.
If he's watching this, yeah, you have, is it strength, speed, like intelligence, and like charisma
Crack.
as your crack, yeah.
Legally distinct crack. No, they don't own charisma. They can't have that. But yeah,
for now they don't own it.
Yeah, so you all get a go, and if the enemy still has health remaining, the numbers of these tokens make up what they're in a bag over here. I'll get them out in a moment. You have tokens on the table. I'm sure you have an image of this, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'll do it in post.
Oh, beautiful. Do it in pose. Yeah. These little tokens then go literally on your table to represent what you have, what the enemy's health is. Let me do that again.
You start like as someone playing the game, you start with like a kind of a class, like that's your, or like and I mean when we were playing, we divvied them up randomly because we're like, this will be more fun to do this. And yeah, it was that thing. I ended up getting the Moon Tour, and everybody got a great shtick out of that. Like, because I like in my day job, that's what I am, and everybody's like,
"Oh, fantastic!"
Yeah, it's obviously inspired by tabletop role playing games like D&D and stuff like that. So there's like nods to some of the mechanics, but obviously it's not done the same way. But the thing that we really liked about it, and I'm going to try and say this in the nicest way. We really liked all the Irishisms in it.
Sure.
And that sometimes can come across as very like, oh, that's just a thing that we're doing. And it actually doesn't. Like I mean, from the Cowboy Builder to Oliver Cromwell's one.
Cromwell is one of the enemies. That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
There's boy
I've been given
racers.
out to by people who were saying, "Are you?" Because Cromwell has quite a high. Oh, here he is. He's got quite a high crack score, and people kept telling me that Cromwell was actually no crack. But the trick is that this makes up his health that you have to defeat. So it's
Yeah.
more the power in you that must remove his 2 crack tokens to defeat him as part of the overall. But I feel like I stumbled earlier on when I was talking about the combat because I love this a lot. At the end of your round, you take 3 damage, and if he still has tokens remaining, you take damage.
Yeah.
But on ones like these, there's some gambling. Did you get many of these on your playthrough?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we had.
These can
I
kill
can't.
you.
Margaret Thatcher is what did
Margaret
us in
Thatcher
the
has one
end.
of these as well, a
Yeah,
variable damage score where you can take 3 or you can risk it to get 1 or 5.
yeah, we risked it. We were those people who were like, ah, just do it and see what happens, and it came back to bite us on the ass.
Is that coming up backwards? Is that backwards on the
No,
screen?
yeah, no, it's
It's
and
fine
weirdly
for
enough,
you.
you don't even have to do the Mua thing either. It's coming up exactly crystal clear and everything. So
Fantastic, great, lovely.
we have that sort of it's a really nice middle ground, an introduction into into kind of both. It's a fun game that even if you don't have a lot of people that play board games or card games or people who don't know anything about TTRPGs, the learning curve on it is actually quite straightforward. Like that's the it's really really good at entry level, but also for us nerds, there's a shitload of fun in trying to strategize your way through it.
That's the balance, isn't it?
Yes,
That was one of the hardest things to get right in like the changing and the little chipping that you have to do in all the playtesting phase, which was um I don't think you guys actually I fucking want it now. You never gave me any feedback on the game. You never gave me any bits that you wanted to change, and
I
I don't
think
know
we
if
said
I've
it was
ever
really
believed you.
good. I think we're shit at feedback. Like again, as a teacher, I'm always
It's
thinking of
too
like, how
late
do I?
now. Don't tell me.
Okay, I'll send it. I'll send it over. And
No,
actually,
please.
here's all the things you shouldn't have done.
So
um,
yeah, no, I really appreciate all the kind words and stuff. Thank you.
uh, but
The difficulty making it nice for new players and also making it satisfying for people who've played a lot of games like actual D&D or loads of other RPGs. That was a tough balance to try and get that right. Really
uh,
took a lot of twisting and testing and yeah.
can like this is a kind of a left of field question. Where did the and I know there's a show and stuff that you do, and I definitely want to talk about that. Like, but why did you decide to make a game in the first place? Like that's actually something that I'm really curious about. Like that I think of like have you made games before or
No, I make loads of games all the time doing the Dungeons and Dragons games for like friends and for live shows and stuff like that. And I also in my job I do stuff basically. I kind of do stuff that's sort of like office parties. I sound like a stripper. I made it sound like a stripper. I do sort of stuff. I sometimes my job I'm lucky enough to have that be me facilitating games and game show style stuff. And I like games and I like making stuff really simple with simple rules. I play a lot of games with my fiance, and we love games that just have like 2 buttons that have an easy to entry, like understandable level, like easy to learn, difficult to master, like
Hmm.
Overcooked. Games like that, like just games that just basically have 2 buttons. You just do that one to go and that one to stop, and you turn with this one, and that's it. And it's the simplest little thing. And I love those type of games, and that's what I love. I want to like make it really simple and easy for people to just start and play a game. I feel yeah, it's it's my favorite thing is making like an easy rule that like just works for people and they have fun playing with it, with the thing that I made. That's really cool.
we've been dancing around it a couple of times, Steve. But um, outside of the game, Dungeons and Dragons is also a live show and a podcast that you do as well.
Yeah.
Um, and it started with the live show.
Yeah.
How long are you at that, and where did that come from?
So I started doing Dungeons and Naggins, like like an embarrassing number of years ago, closer to the decade maybe now, like a long time ago. My friend was having a birthday party. It was like 31 or one of those ones that he thought kind of didn't matter, and he wanted to play D&D, but none of us had played before or knew really what it was. And I had seen the Community episode where they play D&D, and I'd watched Harmon Quest, and that was about it really. And then I watched some YouTube videos about how to do it, and I over prepared and made big maps with greaseproof paper. And the world of Naginthia was huge. And I think we were in Galway and we drank naggins at the time. It was just something we did. We got into a habit of having table book fast for ones and 20s, and these games were too long. When we started, they were just too long. They were 7 hours long sometimes.
Oh,
They
okay.
would the players would go to the casino. It was I had it, and from the start I just had this stubbornness to not do D&D properly, to not buy the kit and do the proper character sheet. It was just too much. And in my first iteration of the character sheets, I might be able to send you a photo of this. There are more stats on them, but they're quite basic, and it's quite true to what I ended up with than what I use now. I don't like a character sheet to have more than like 8 things on it. I think it should be just
Okay.
super, super simple. And yeah, it's just, yeah. So where was I? What was I in the middle of?
So you were telling me kind of where it all started. So it started with you
Sure.
and mates. Okay, and then
Yes,
how did
that's
that
right.
transform then?
Then I just knew a bunch of comedians, and everyone had a podcast, and I wanted to do one, and I didn't want my podcast to just be two lads chatting. So I had this idea to do this game where I could make people play this game with me who were really funny people. And you know how hard it is to get a game together. I got these people into my house to play for exposure on mic. It was a great time. And I really had fun introducing a lot of people to the game for the first time. And I like being able to follow through on the promise that this is going to have fewer rules than the actual D&D you might have seen the Things kids playing, you know?
Cool.
So that was the podcast. The first bit was recorded sort of, some would say, in a blind panic to promote the upcoming Dublin Fringe Festival shows in 2019. And anyway, those shows went really well, and I really wanted to do more. So I booked in 2020 a bunch of shows, like 6 in Dublin, 6 in Galway. I think I had lined up all ready to go, live shows, and I got to do one of them, and then that thing
Ugh.
happened.
Yeah.
So I did season 2 online with people over
Okay.
Zoom. And again, I really had fun with it. But what I started to do in season 2 was I started to drift away from the classic high fantasy D&D and started doing more like what I was doing with my friends in the games when I was running them, which was like really heavily theming stuff and trying to keep it like an hour and a half, kind of 2 hours length. And then I suppose at the Dublin Fringe in 2019, and then the live shows that happened after COVID and that are going on now in Mob Theatre Dublin, the fourth Thursday of the month. I'll do dates. We can put put dates on the screen.
Okay.
But I'm back. I'm back. COVID happened, but we're back. We're doing live shows, and live shows are the way I want to record the podcast. And I got live show recordings from the Dublin Fringe Festival ones, and I really liked them. And while I liked the ones in the recording from Zoom for season 2, I really wanted season 3 to just be live episodes the whole time. I love the energy of them. I love the buzz that I get off trying to make stuff work in like 55 minutes, sometimes with a brand new player who doesn't know what this is. And I think that secret sauce is just railroading. We're going to talk about structure in a bit. I'm going to show you some of my drawings, but like the answer is, if they go off the track, if they do something mad, you make some go where you need them to go for the narrative.
I so the next one is May 23rd,
May
right? So
23rd, yeah, in Mob
okay.
Theatre Dublin. It's in Wigwam. It's Mob Theatre Dublin is like an improv comedy night, and it's in Wigwam, which is next to the Academy Theatre.
Okay. I go along. What can I expect in the show? Like, what's the structure of the show like?
Great. Okay, so we start off, we bring the players out on stage, we explain the very simple rules that are basically we roll a d20 and high is good and low is bad. The crowd are going to do the audience are going to do NPC voices. So the crowd do NPC voices. We pick one person to be the artist who's going to draw kind of what they think is going on in the adventure. And we also have the crowd will make choices throughout the night and roll dice for stuff as well.
Okay.
So then our 2 or 3 players come up on the stage and they start off on their adventure. Usually something mad will happen. They'll interact with the audience through their NPC dialogue, which is just, it's my favorite trick that I've learned for the live shows, is that you just give an audience member a small piece of paper that has 3 possible things your character can say, like in like Skyrim or something.
Okay.
So if you click again to talk to them again, they can only say back one of those things. So it's like that Whose Line Is It Anyway game where they only can say 2 sentences. And it's something that started in the Pokemon live show, because that's how that's how Professor Oak literally speaks to you. But it's transferred over for me. I use it for loads of stuff now because it's a fun way for the audience to do a voice and get involved and give it a go, but not have to prepare anything or feel like they need to be big, funny improv stars. They can just say the line, and it usually, if I did it right, it gets a laugh. It doesn't always.
With and so this is like the Ben and I are this evening. We're talking about prepping for a session. We're talking about as a dungeon master, a Naggin Lord, storyteller.
Lord, I prefer. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. As somebody who is in charge of what we're doing, how much prep do you do for the show?
Skeleton. Can I show you a picture?
Yes, yeah.
Here we go. A skeleton is really important to me, like the structure of a game like that, if that makes sense, where it's sort of like a circle that you kind of go in a story circle, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually what I come into mostly with a show. I have one A4 page that has the story kind of out on it. For a live show, I'll have probably 2 A4 pages worth cut up of 5 or 6 NPC dialogues. And for the live show as well, I have a projector screen, which I really love to make like images on a slideshow to be like, now we're going to the cabin. We're in the cabin. And again, the Pokemon live show, we played Marry, Fuck, Kill with 3 Pokemon at a time. And so we gave it in secret to an audience member who had to select their choice. And then our 3 comedians had to guess the same as that person. And that's a huge part of my games as well, is when you come to a live show, you're going to see a little goblin fella who is the green card that we looked at quite recently over here. A little goblin fella has been present in all my games. And it's basically a little avatar for me, so I can just make people play little games for me.
God, we're all monsters.
Show elements were really important to me. I feel like they made things sort of like more accessible, or more like good old-fashioned family fun. Anyone can sort of jump in and play because the rules are simple. You just spin the wheel or whatever, you know.
What has it ever happened? Like, so obviously, I would use a very similar structure for a session that I would have. I don't go in with the whole meat and conscious thought and whatnot of the story. It's just I have a skeleton. I literally have this to this to this, and that'll do fine. I've got have you ever had and this can be either one of the live shows, or this could be even in like just even your own home games if you're running them at home. Have you ever had that go awry? Like, so all you've planned for what the session's going to be, you planned for what the show is going to be, and then it goes out the fucking window, gets in a taxi, and gets on a plane and goes somewhere fucking else.
Yeah, I mean, in a live show, the answer is simple, and is if the crowd is laughing, then we're still doing good. So it doesn't matter if we went off script, and I often end up with those kind of problems, having to be like, okay, well, we've skipped a bit. I'm just a real bitch about it. I'm like, well, we've skipped a bit there, and we have to go for no reason. We cut to the next scene, and we're in this place now. Now you're at the boss's mansion, okay? And And there was a real cool bit on the highway back there that would have been a real cool dude shootout that all of you wanted, and you're not going to get it because you wanted to goof around with a shopkeeper. You dirty motherfuckers. I just want to rub their noses in it.
Oh fucking hell! I think myself and yourself and Ben need to sit down sometime and just, I don't know, just talk.
Well, you know, it's also fine. You know, the whole thing, like in a live show, if the crowd's laughing, then we're still good. And in a home game, it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, the real answer is that if something goes awry or totally wrong, you go with it. And when people ask you, did you plan for that bit to happen? You run away, because if you really have to crowbar the thing in, you should probably just save it for a different time. Keep those notes and make it fit into a different thing another time. Like in the live shows, I can't have combat that's 45 minutes long and everyone gets 3 turns and stuff. It has to be real simple, real quick, and move along, because it'll get real boring for people, and I don't want that to happen. It's different at table games with friends. You can go on a bit more, but
I love the idea of someone just taking their phone out mid-show going, yeah, sorry, a second. I actually just found here on Reddit that rule you mentioned doesn't actually work in combat, and my character is able to do that action that you said I couldn't do last turn. So
I think I end
let's
up being
retcon.
quite apologetic at live shows and kind of saying like, "Hey, I don't know the rules and I don't do it right." I think I'm trying to make it the intro kind of more, this is what we do here, and not so much because I've been told it's a D&D crowd. I'm not sure. I always thought it was one D&D person per 4 onlookers who they've dragged along to go, I swear this one will be funny. You know, like someone who's been trying to convince their group of 4 to like, come on, we're gonna play D&D and it's gonna be great, and they won't do it, but maybe they'll come to the live show and toe dip in it. And I really want to make it simple and like accessible and fun for people to give it a go and give it a try. And I hope that, so I don't know who my demographic is. Come up and say hi after a show, please, if you're out there. And that'd be real nice to just tell me, where do you play D&D?
Where do you play it? No. Oh, okay. Bye.
Oh, great.
So before we wrap things up and before we kind of say our farewell, and I hand back to other me and Ben, Steve, where can we get tickets? Can we still get tickets to, because this is going out on the 16th, so that's a week before the next show.
Yeah, so next week, if you go to Eventbrite and find Mob Theatre Dublin, or you go to mobtheatredublin.ie, or you go to dungeonsandnaggins.com, any of those will have a link to those tickets on Eventbrite for the 23rd of May, which is
Awesome.
Mob Theatre Dublin in Wigwam.
And we will have links to that in chat as well now.
Lovely.
And on our socials as well, hopefully.
Yeah, come along, say hi. Say hi, especially if you're coming because you heard this episode. That's so cool. Come along.
If I don't want to oversell myself here, I'm not that techie. I'm like, I hope I've got the chat commands right, and I hope I schedule the social media posts, but we'll find out on Thursday.
Cool.
Steve, so sorry, this has been nearly an hour. I told
nope, quite all right. I'm ready for more. I want to tell you all my influences. I want to confess all the bits of the game that I've stolen from so many other games.
Shit. Okay. I'll stop the
honestly
recording.
Though, everything has to be like a mush of everything kind of like put in together.
I would love to sit and chat with you again and talk to you about your creative process. So if this didn't put you off entirely, then we'd love to have you back.
Cool.
And I am going to hand back to Ben in, we keep saying studio, it's not a studio, it's Ben in his room and I'm in my office. Okay. That's where we are.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and I'll chat to you again soon. Good luck, everybody. Bye.
Hi, we're Horde of Tales. We're an EU-based actual play Twitch channel. We have a long-form D&D campaign.
You may note us as 1,
1,
2,
2,
3.
3.
The plane
Plane
jumpers.
diver. No.
Divers?
How did we mess this up?
And we're the new home of the EU Happy Hour.
Look, I placed them down where I thought they would be. I didn't say it was right.
We often have short-term flights that you can be a part of.
I have never heard or read a Regency-era love letter that sounded more like a booty call than that.
It's open to interpretation.
Come add to our collection at twitch.tv/Horde of Tales.
Howdy, folks. Welcome to the latest episode of Source and Shenanigans.
You haven't seen any cows, have you?
Once.
Going to cast I'm sorry in advance. I'm going to cast heat metal on the horse's bit.
Oh.
Believed to be Shark. Shark kind of pulls herself back and she's like, well, it looks like we have ourselves a game.
Yeah.
And we're back. That's us. We're here.
Welcome back. Hello.
We're doing stuff.
We're here live. This ain't pre-recorded live. Don't know why that would prove that.
Oh, okay.
I can do this. I was having a little bit of fun, both watching that incredible interview with Steve, but also testing out Automod in chat. It turns out it doesn't like when I call you guys idiots and suckers. So get used to it, idiots and suckers, because that's what I've been calling you. Yeah, Automod, I flag it a lot.
Really, you do.
Just by being like, you dweebs, and it's like, stop calling them. I don't know. I feel like as the youngest in a family, I feel like I give older brother bully vibes, and I don't mind it. That's my DM persona.
God, that is so far from your DM persona. It's not even funny.
Yeah, I know.
Your elderly neighborhood lady next door who bakes cookies for the children and tells them whimsical stories of her childhood.
You guys don't have anywhere to go? Come hang out in my garage. Let's play a game. Things that if Jigsaw said it would be creepy because I said it. They're like, oh, how sweet.
That was. You'll notice I laughed the whole way through a lot of that interview. It was a great conversation, really, with Steve. And as somebody who got to play Dungeons and Dragons, the early version of it, and then backed it, and I've played it numerous times since. If you're sitting on the fence, if you're like, oh, I don't know, get it, just get it. It's so much. It's a wonderful way of, and I think it could be a great way, like a gateway to get your mates into maybe trying, a TTRPG after the fact. And like we said, the next show is today week. You can get tickets over on dungeonsandnaggins.com, and it's the fourth Thursday of every month.
Yeah. Every month.
So if you can't go next week, look to June. I know one of the shows coming up. I don't know if we're allowed to say one of the shows, but I know one of the next shows there's other people involved that we know, and that sounds like I don't know.
Just go next week and go in June.
Yeah.
And that might sort your July plans.
You might have spotted at the end of our promo reel, and I'll come back to the promo reel in a second, but you might have spotted at the promo reel there a new little image. And that is for the Hearthfire Tales live show in July in the Smock Alley Theatre. So, and I like Dylan's in chat. So Dylan, put the link in there because I have a cat on my keyboard. But put the link, there. No, down.
Put it in, and as long as you don't call people idiots and suckers, you should be fine. That's what I've learned.
I'm just gonna ban Ben from chat, I think. You notice towards the end, I started talking to Steve a little bit about his process and his prep for the shows and his home games and stuff like that. And we want to talk a little bit about the preparation that we do for our games. And I'm just look. I know it's Ben and Declan On A Roll, so you think, oh, they must be great friends. But as somebody who really does admire Ben as a DM, not as.
It's like, are we not great friends? Are we business acquaintances?
We're business. There's no acquaintance.
Yeah, we're business acquaintances. Sorry. You were
you're not getting it now. You're not getting it. Sorry, Automata censored me from doing it, so I can't. But as somebody who does really enjoy the way Ben prepares and views preparation for a game, like I've learned an awful lot from the way Ben does it. So today, I'm going to chat to Ben about his prep and how he goes about doing all that. And what's even better, we're not just going to sit here now for the next 30 minutes or whatever it is and just do that. Ben's kindly agreed to show us some of his prep. I'm going to warn anybody as well. I'm going to give like kind of a not a trigger warning, but a cautionary warning. When we cut to the next scene, you are going to get a glimpse at just the level of detail that Ben puts into prepping a session, and it is mighty.
It's too much. It's too much. So, tell you that much.
So obviously the details might be kind of hard to read for folks at home, but I think everybody can appreciate the vastness in that. That's effectively 2-3 full A4 pages. Is this multiple sessions, Ben? Is this a single session?
No, this is, and I suppose for this section, it's worth saying if you haven't watched Homebrew Quest or the first campaign we did over on YouTube, it's been off air for about 1.5 years, but the full campaign's up there. We started live. We went through, as Steve mentioned, went through the pandemic, continued online, and then kind of stayed online until the end. These might have spoilers for certain episodes, but the chances are they won't, because what goes down on the page and what happens on stream, as we'll chat about in DM prep, can be very different. So what I shared with Declan earlier this week was what you're looking at now is the second streamed episode of Homebrew Quest. So there was prep beforehand. I went back into my notes to find it. We will show you notes I made towards the end of the campaign, which are significantly shorter, or it will seem like the same length, but they cover more. So this is just one episode of Homebrew, and there's a couple of things that you might be able to see, it might not, but like I have if-then trees, and I very quickly stopped doing that. Like if they stay on boat, and then a session prepped out that way. If they go on land, and a session prepped out that way. Within that one, if they go east, and a session prepped out that way. And then if they go west, and a session prepped out. And it was like far too much. Far too much. Because I learned, Homebrew was the very first time I'd ever DM'd, so I was learning. So if your notes look like this, and they're useful to you, keep them like this. They stopped being useful to me because I was putting in way more effort for a 2.5-3 hour live stream every second Tuesday, where we also drank on stream. Like the point of the show was that we were getting drunk progressively as the episode went on. So like you'll notice that the way my notes are broken up is beat 1, beat 2, beat 3. Beat 1 is usually establish the scene. Beat 2 is usually the complication, and beat 3 is usually the conclusion and knock-on effects. Beat 3 tends to be very light because I have no idea where a session is going to go. So sometimes the prep happens just in knowing the world and then hoping for the best. And usually my very light beat 3 becomes a very heavy beat 1 next session. That's what we're looking at here. I also throw in monster stat blocks if I need them. A little initiative counter if I need it. I'm using OneNote for all my notes. I know there are programs out there. I know there's great programs out there for DMs where you can have like a folder for players, a folder for maps, a folder for minis. You can have like an all-in-one space. For me, I just preferred taking my little tablet to a pub and like ordering a pint and typing away. And if you go into the Homebrew social channels, you'll see like early photos of me in a lovely little pub called the Tap House in Ranelagh, like suddenly getting like surrounded by like football fans on a Sunday, because I usually prepped on a Sunday. I'd have like a quiet little pint, and then like the bar would fill up, and I'd be like, I hate this. This is the worst. But it was nice to kind of be an escape.
That's actually one of my first questions for you, Ben. And I want to come back to this, and then I want to come back to actually something that Steve said in the interview as well. And it's interesting that you both kind of touched on it. But how long ahead of a session, like the live stream itself, were you preparing this kind of stuff?
This would happen the Sunday before the Tuesday. So it was 2 days, essentially, for a couple of reasons. One, it kept a routine. So when I turned around to my wife and said, I'm going off to do this, I wasn't kind of suddenly trying to squeeze prep in around my life. It was a time I'd set aside every 2 weeks to go prep. Two, by Sunday, we'd usually know if we were streaming on Tuesday. So I wasn't kind of prepping ahead of time, and it avoided me getting, like, anyone who's a very close friend of mine will know that I'm terrible when organizing something at being like super passive aggressive when it doesn't happen. Like I've since learned to be better at it, and I've done a lot of work on myself to get better at it. But it used to be that, like, you know, it's Tuesday and someone gets sick on the day of Homebrew, and I'd be like, yes, we won't stream. Do look after yourself. This is fine. And a part of me would be like, what fucking prep I put in? Like, and it wouldn't be that it would go to waste because we just do it next episode. But especially if we were doing a filler episode, it's like, now I have to prep again for something that I hadn't planned on doing today. And it was just nicer to keep the closer to the session, the closer the prep. Also means you don't overthink it, I think.
I'm going to skip my next... I'm going to come back to my next question. I'm going to skip it and go to something else because I think we're in that right vein with it. Can you talk to me about... So if you're prepping on a Sunday, let's say the stream is going ahead, so we're not going to even factor in, you know, things outside your control or having to, like, you know, improv, you know, kind of a prologue episode or whatever it might be. What does your process look like?
It's funny because there used to be, it would be different for a home game to a stream. So I would both prep the stream as the DM of like the game, but then I would also prep like Homebrew as the host. So I'd always start with like a stupid little song that I'd rewritten the lyrics to be a bit kind of D&D, any announcements, all that kind of stuff. So I found that would often take longer. So like I'd spend ages on like, okay, what song am I going to do? What's this going to be? But it would get me in that mood to write. And then it would just simply on a blank piece of paper write B1, B2, B3, and then look at my last session notes to see if there was anything we hadn't gotten to. So say we only got down to like halfway through beat 2, I would go, brilliant! And I'd just like copy and then paste that into beat 1. And I'd be like, right, that's where we're picking up off. That gets that done. I'd use the tone and the events of the game to shape and rewrite stuff. I go, oh, maybe I should bring that in sooner, or they're really not picking up on this plot hook, so I need to make that more obvious. Or there's a lot of heavy roleplay coming up, not the right time for combat. Let's put that to the side for now. And then I'd throw on a playlist. I'd order myself a pint. I'd sit there and I would go down through it. I would very rarely like flip open the monster manual or like open up the Dungeon Master's Guide to be like, oh, I wonder if I could. I'd rarely like go to pre-written mod. Well, we were called Homebrew, so it was kind of against the spirit of the game to be like, I'll take this from Strahd. But I would have a kind of notepad in my phone of like little ideas, and I'd also have a side panel in OneNote of like little ideas. I'd dip in there, see if anything was kind of like, oh, that actually fits. So like, this might come into play at some time. It was like things like, if the party come across a crossroads, and like these would be like little stupid gags. I'd be like, if they come across a crossroads, have a crossroads demon appear, and have them like try offer the party like unlimited power. And like it's for me, it was just so funny to think of a level 10 party and someone being like, adventurers, do you want all the power in the world? I can give you the force to destroy mountains. And then if they signed it up, it's like, here's Eldritch Blast. Like the deal maker would be like, level 1 warlocks. And it's like, oh no, we don't need that. We're way beyond the stuff you're offering. Because when you really think about it, don't make a pact with a demon. Just like go out and grind some rats in the forest. You'll XP enough. Like, you won't need that deal. Only an idiot becomes a warlock. That's what I'm saying. Idiots and suckers.
Telepath Norwell is in the chat.
It just doesn't make sense in the world of the lore. Those things might like pepper in my prep. I don't know if that answers. Like, I'm also very spontaneous when it comes to things, so I would maybe look back. I'd watch the last 15 minutes of Homebrew to be like, was anything happening there? And I might message a player, especially for the recap, because the players would do the recap. So I'd be like, you got the recap. Anything you felt was important?
Because that brings me to thank you for like segueing into my next question so easily. How much of your prep do you share with your players in advance, particularly for the streams? And then how much of the prep are they actually involved in? Like, you know, if for you, like, do you reach out? Do you kind of do one-on-one sessions or group sessions before? What's their involvement in that process?
If you asked me mid-Homebrew, I'd say zero, none. Like, and they just weren't all that involved in prep, which probably led to me being more. And like, everyone in Homebrew knows this, and like I have since like, I remember saying to them once, and this is probably like might hit the same emotion to a lot of people who do TTRPGs. It's like, I would love to be able to message you and you not to see my name on your phone and go, ugh, he has something for me to do, and for you to think, oh, my good friend Ben, he's probably inviting me to a party. So I would try to keep them out of the prep as much as possible, so that they could just enjoy the game and rock up and have a good time. It meant if we had to reschedule or something went up, I would like internalize that annoyance way more. I'd be like, fuck's sake. And I've, you know, having since seen it and seeing how useless that is as a reaction, I've just went, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. And now I hopefully don't. But to answer your question properly, having played with you since kind of finishing up in Homebrew, the next thing I'm going to do way more player interaction. I'm not going to build a whole world and like get them to sort of figure it out. I probably didn't explain that session 0 in Homebrew enough, that like there was a whole plot unraveling, there was whole reasons, and like if you watch the campaign, I kind of like it because of how like zigzaggy the story is, but it's like things are happening and they're just kind of going like around the place until eventually it's like, oh shit, like this big event is happening to the world, and the players were like, what? And I'm there, I'm like, the signs were there, guys, and I didn't signpost them enough. So now I'm going to try chat to them and only write the plot after I know their characters, so I can make it about them, make the story about them, and not the thing, and not the world, and the world reacts to them, not they react to the world, because I think it's a better story.
I was going to say, because I largely when you were talking about like, you know, I don't really engage them, that's something that I've never done. I always engage my players to see, because I need to be told I'm doing a good job, and I already know that when they're all crying at the table and upset. But I want to talk about something, because you've said it a couple of times, and it kind of speaks to the interview with Steve as well towards the left. That idea of things going wrong in your prep, or in this case, the not getting to use the content that you have generated. And I mean, like, that's just one slide. That's just one image you sent. Like, I just put another one on screen. Like you can see, and again, that is different. I think you've kind of looking at that one. It's slightly less.
Oh, sorry. To clarify, what you just showed and what you're showing now, same episode. It's all one, but that's how much prep I was doing. Yes, yeah. That is the end of. No, wait. It cannot be. No, it is. Yes, it is.
To that.
Yes. It goes left. This is all. So 5 pages was what I was doing. Too much.
Intervention, buddy. Intervention.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. That's all one ep. Now, if I remember correctly, we only got to like halfway through that because it's a stream and it's only 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I learned, this is episode 2. I learned very quickly to cut back.
That's intense. I can. So this is kind of what I want to speak to, right? So you've done those 5 pages. You've only got 2.5, 3 hours maybe for the stream. And, Steve mentioned that whole idea of, you can't just crowbar in the thing that you want because it's not going to fit. And you mentioned that thing of kind of almost internalizing it a little bit. What do you, if that's something you don't do now, like if it's that thing of, well, the prep I didn't get to use, what do you do with it then? Like, and I know you mentioned, some of it's a copy and paste, but oftentimes when you plan and the players go like that, I planned for them to go on a boat, but they went east. Where's the prep for that? Like, so how do you prep for the unexpected, I guess, is my question to you.
My attitude to prep has changed a lot over the 3, 4, 5 years. God, I don't even know how long I've been since Homebrew. Yeah. And there's a thing I do now where, like, this prep includes, like, feeder lines for an accent, like things I can read out. The other thing about long prep is it becomes impossible to find anything. It's like, it's all, the way I think of it is you throw 1 tennis ball at someone, they'll catch it. You throw 50 tennis balls at someone, they're not even catching one. So, like, putting together all these slides and trying to find what you need in it is only going to be frustrating. So what I do when something unexpected happens is my prep is far more fluid. So I prepare for the unpreparable in that I don't put things in specific places anymore. Like, a city's not going to be to the north. A city's going to be wherever the city needs to be, if there at all. I now move into a place where if I can get these 3 things communicated over this episode or over this session, if the party by the end of the session know this and have done this and are ready for that, whatever this, that, and this is, then I can walk away going, okay, I did a good job. They were my 3 things I needed to do, and I've done that. And it gives me more space as DM to play at the table and not be like a choose your own adventure person. Like, you've chosen option 3B. Let me go to spreadsheets. It's like option 3B leads you to nice things. And don't get me wrong, I love the idea of random tables. I wish I was one of those DMs, the ones who can just be like, oh, you need a shop? And they go like, dunk, 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 and they make a shop and then improvise around it. I'm just not... I don't have that level of... I mean, you're looking at my notes. They look organized, but actually they're just like stream of consciousness. I don't have that level of organization to be quick enough to be like, pull up my shop generator, pull up my tent generator, and then also to think, what's this going to be? Without it all being the exact same. Like, suddenly everywhere they go is a sleepy, snowy town with like a big, boisterous, fat controller, Thomas the Tank Engine kind of mayor that comes out and greets them, and like, a Gaston character walks through. So like, I'd become very formulaic. Welcome to the town, my friends. Aren't you the mayor from before? He's my brother. It's the Nurse Joy kind of situation.
It works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a bad DM thing to do, especially for like speed and consistency when it comes to shopping. Just like make all the shopkeepers the same little guy. And then away you go.
A chain of like magical shops that it's like the one poor Warforged that's been like churned out constantly.
Yeah. Go sell my things. I have just realized I've started prepping for the next homebrew anyway, and as much as I was like, I'll get the players involved, I did send them a dossier. I was like, this is the game we're playing, by the way. So I learned from the last one. It's because it's shorter, so we can be a little bit more. We're playing my game this time.
I want to ask. I was going to ask you for your 3 tips, and because it was like in the last episode we did like the 7 things to do if you're not going to prep for your session. I don't want to ask you. I do want to ask you, but I want to keep 2 of those for myself. I want your best tip for prepping. Like, what's your golden rule? What's your thing?
Like, my prep now is I have a little a session checklist that I look back on. So I go like, is there an opportunity? So once I prep loosely, I go like, is there an opportunity for a plot reveal? Is there an opportunity for a twist? Is there an opportunity for like, just like looking at what I've written, where would I fit things in if like it felt naturally to put it in there? So like, put the big bad up here and do a monologue sometime here. Maybe not. So having that and then having those 3 things being like, okay, if I tell them this and they know this and they do this, we're in a good place for the next time. But that's what works for me. So my actual advice is do the prep that works for you. And for every DM, for every GM out there, it's going to be different. You're going to see my notes here. Don't try emulate them. Unless you think like I do, unless you work like I do, it's not going to work for you. Prep the way you prep and learn from yourself. Like, go back and go what worked and what didn't work. You'll notice a lot of like colors in my notes. A lot of them are just like big things that just say, slow down, idiot, because I speak very fast. So like little reminders, or like, don't let them leave without picking up this sword. Like things that just scream out in these notes, because it reminds me of what I used to call Sunday Ben. So like there'd be a running joke in Homebrew where I'd get to a point in my notes and I'd be like, I'm not going to do that. Sunday Ben's an idiot. Tuesday Ben's drunk. Let's go this way. So being able to like throw your notes away. I now write notes, and then if I can not look at them during a game, great. If they just, whatever's in the back of my head, if it was important and it comes forward, brilliant. So yeah, do the prep that works for you and find what works for you best, because there's so many tools out there. There's so many, like, here's the lazy DM. Here's, Matt Colville will have loads of this episode is us telling you how to prep. Like, there's a lot of resources out there on how to prep. Find your style and run with it.
That's something that I fundamentally that's something we will agree on, that like it is, every DM is going to have a style. So there are DMs probably looking at your notes, Ben, going, oh god, I do double that, or I have all of this extra stuff and I've got all the, if that's what works, do that. Like, this isn't, there is, I mean, I was going to say there's no rules, but there actually aren't. Like, it literally is, it's collaborative storytelling, and you can collaborate as much or as little as you want. Now, personally, I think the more you collaborate, the better it actually is. But if you want to sit there and you want to write out a 10-page document for your home game, and plan it out bit by bit, and do it. If that's going to help you be a stronger DM and get used to it. But what I will say, and maybe we have the same experience, that the more I DM, the more comfortable I am with, yep, I've got my preps. It's some of it's in my head, some of it's on a page, and then the rest of it I will finagle together because I'm happy. It lives, a lot of it lives in here, and I'm confident in bringing that out with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Really, really does. I see the session prep list is up there. Like, the last third of that document is just, if you're feeling energy is low at the table, ask these prompt questions to your players. Do a kind of, like, you do this really nicely with the D8 services ROS questions. It's just a nice way for us to kind of slip back into the game. We didn't really have a mechanic like that at the start of Homebrew in the episodes, but there were things that I might like text the players beforehand, being like, how do you feel about this? And I'd just go from this list just to see where their mindset was going into the game, so I know what to pull on and what not to.
it's funny, you know, earlier on you said that, you know, when you were doing your prep that a lot of the time went into you writing that D&D song. Like, I'm kind of the same with the Roz questions. Like like every episode has it's a Roz dating profile question, and then sometimes it's tied to the episode, which is really weird. Sometimes that lines up really weirdly. But the other thing that we do is Roz also throws in like a random factoid about herself or the world. It's kind of we pepper in a little bit. That takes forever. That is that's the weird thing that I get hung up on. Because when I was watching Homebrew Live and when I listened back to it, like, I mean, every episode, like, I'm pretty sure it's new. Like every episode I caught anyway, you've done one of those parodies, like.
Yeah. It's not at the very beginning, the very first episodes where I was still finding my feet. We don't do it. But I used to do this thing where there was like 4 paragraphs of like world stuff. It's like, along the mountain range, we see a group of travelers like camped around a campfire. And I would like set these little like vignettes around the world. And then we were like, and then in this little corner, ignoring the plot, you stupid little fucks. And I would kind of set it up as if there was this big adventure. And then it was like, but we're not going to tell that story. We're going to tell this story with these idiots. I stopped doing that because I was like, it's not like not that no one cares. It's like no one cares that there is a tribe, you know, up in the north that like sing songs to communicate, especially not the players who like didn't really realize they could go there. Like that these are for you to like, what's that? Let's go there. And I also played with chronological events a little bit. So like the end of Homebrew is in the beginning of those things. Like the story of Rua, the story of Iggy's dad, God, Bacchus. It's harder to remember the names of characters when they're made up on the spot based on beers you're drinking. That's in those little vignettes a couple of times, all those different kind of things. And I'm there being like, when the players realize this, they're going to think I'm so smart. And of course they're like, you said like 2 guys walking down the street. Like, why were we ever going to think that they were the same people?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Look, I will say when there's payoff, it's amazing. Like when you're like, oh, when they join the dots, you're like, oh, chef kiss. It's amazing. But when it doesn't come together, it's nuts. God, and I thought I had my work cut out for me thinking of M words to open episodes with.
M words.
I said to Ben that it's like, for kind of transparency's sake, that if Ben was going to show you his, I will show you mine. And I've decided to kind of show the very first. It's the script for the first 2-ish episodes of Romancing the Dungeon season 1, and then what I wanted to show you right after that is episode 4 of season 3. Now that is all hidden. That is all redacted for reasons of it's not out yet. But I want you'll spot the difference as we kind of slide down to this. And like Ben, I was doing a lot of this, like these big paragraphs. Like there's the Roz, the opening kind of motto for D8 services that I keep, by the way, on every. That is on every episode. It's just there. Every one of these kind of session preps or scripts that I call them scripts that I have, I put these in. So there's the questions for the players. And I would often kind of at the end of a session, if we've done an episode or 2 episodes, 3 episodes, whatever it is that we've been able to record, I will often ask the players there and then. Sometimes we don't do it actually as much anymore, but now we do it the day before. They're like, what's the name of this bloody episode? Someone come up with something funny. But we would put in kind of suggestions for episode titles. And then I've got my key locations. So where are these sessions taking place? And again, you see, there's not a whole pile there because the Village of Herb is in my head and I know exactly what it looks like. And I can explain that, I hope, well. And places they might go, and then a Shrine of Adana, see a map, and I would have a map ready for myself. The players didn't get a map. It's a map for me, so I know how it all kind of falls out together. Then you have your key events, and then episode 1, and it's broken down into Fia meets Thane, Hephaestus comes in next, then it's Nathaniel. Oh, there's something to do with this girl called Raven Direheart. They all arrive together. Time to RP. Like, I don't know.
And now you guys.
Yeah, and like this all happens in the first episode. Like, this is the kind of it's the group meeting, with kind of a nod to Father Sops, being kind of an NPC antagonist that will, or a plot device, whatever you want to call him. And then like Ella is possessed by a sex demon or goddess or something old, ancient, and possibly evil. But he needs their help in breaking up with her. Smash up her shrine found in the Montague Forest. And again, then into episode 2. And I also do what Ben does, and I have my monster stat blocks here in my document. Makes it a lot easier. Search for Swallow's Cave, DC 14, like all these bits and pieces. And then this is something that I do in every session prep. So my key characters that are going to be in these episodes, and they'll give me they'll help me kind of have my pieces ready. Like, who do I need and when can they come in and what can they do? So like you've Ella Restone, the prancing mule owner possessed by Hedona. Father Sops, quest giver, wishes to break up with Hedona, restore his housekeeper. Cult of the Flesh, which I don't think I ever actually got to call them. And then you had John Norm, who didn't get named, but is the weird guy that's like mad about Hedona that kind of comes up every now and again. And then this is something that I do use a lot. I will do kind of character bios for the NPCs, like the big NPCs, including kind of like reference images to celebrities or art. I find, I don't know if that's going to get us in trouble, but like Father Sops looks like Jim Broadbent in my head. That's the way I've always had it. And just, again, notes about who they are, and they help me get into character. Like I don't do kind of accents, but like speaks rather slowly, uses big words in the hopes of sounding intelligent, barely made it through the seminary studies. So just gets me into the kind of character mindset. Again, a few more combat monster details that I might need. Father Sops, in case the gang ask him to help, which they did, which was a mistake. And then this leads us into season 3. You can see it there, season 3, episode 4. And then intro, CVO, recap, D8 services, ROS. Again, there's a reason this is cut off. It'll get explained in when you're listening to season 3, if you listen to season 3. And you'll notice that I've kept this idea of key locations, key characters. These are just kind of little notes for me that, okay, it's taking place here, and these are the pieces that I'm going to have. Now, this, I don't know if this is going to annoy people or upset people, but here comes the prep for season 3, episode 4. So that is all I've kind of prepped. He tells a lie. There's a bit more. And then this is for the second part of that episode. And here's what I prepped for the final part of that episode. That is it. I didn't write anything.
Well, like, Be Dead is only like 2 words. So
this particular episode that you're looking at it's a I don't know if you want to call it a solo session or a dual session. It's me and one other player. And I knew very early on that these beats were going to occur. These were the things that are outside that character's control. These were just things that are going to have to happen, and that was that. But as that recording session went on, and I just started to kind of go, okay, well, now I'm actually handing this back to the player. Now I'm handing this back to, and it was for Louise, who plays Fia. I'm handing it back to her to be like, okay, you're now back in the driving seat here. You're the one that's going to push this story. So why do I prep for that? I don't. I literally can't. I don't know. I know who's there. I know where they are, and I know how they will react because I'm playing them. And after that, it's going to be up to that player to like effectively steer that narrative, to write it, and I will adapt as I need to, and my player and I are going to kind of have to find our feet with it. Dylan said, I find I prep less per episode the more I've gotten into the story because I know where things are going. Does that resonate with you? Massively. Like that is, and oftentimes I find it's kind of when we've kind of run an arc and it's like, oh, there's a little bit of downtime. Okay, got to prep the hell out of that because I need to make sure that it's fun and engaging. But as I'm in the throes of it, like the thick of it, I'm like, I don't need to do anything. We're going to sit down and we're going to jump straight into it and have a blast with it. Like that's where that comes from, I think. So yeah, there's no, like, if I scroll down, you'll see again, key characters. I've never stopped doing that. Like I always, if it's a new character that I haven't, or it's a character that I haven't seen in a while, I will do a kind of a table like that, and it's just kind of little prompts, little reminders for who they are, where they're coming from, and what I'm doing with them in this session, or how they might respond or react to a character in this session. But that's my prep, and that's Ben's prep, and that's the evolution of us as DMs, and kind of flowing into it like that. Ben said it already, but there's no wrong way to do this.
It's funny that you have the beginning spiel, because like, and I resonate a lot with this. Every bit of my session notes for Homebrew started with hey and welcome to Homebrew, written down on the page. If it wasn't written there, I'd forget to say it, or I'd forget how to say it. And even to this day, it's like hey and welcome to the Homebrew, the show where we avoid the crushing dullness of everyday life using our favorite forms of escapism, alcohol and Dungeons and Dragons. But the amount of times that if it's not written there exactly like that, I will flub it, because it's like you're used to kind of looking at your notes. It just needs to be written there. And probably like the most love-hate moment as a DM in Homebrew was I broke the fourth wall and the players landed in my notes. And so I remember it was Paul who played Randir, the first to kind of figure it out, because I showed them a map and I showed like these kind of corridors of words. And Paul was like, and these are your notes. I'm like, yep, you're in them. So like, do what you will. And they hopped around my notes. So like, it's a shame because looking back now, they were deleting stuff and they were changing stuff and they were smashing things and they were like writing stuff in, and like they were kind of shaping the world. It's the closest I've gotten to collaborating, I think. But then after a while, because that becomes not so much fun for players, it's kind of like, be God for a little bit. It was a little bit of like, use Rosebud in The Sims. Like, then it started hurting them. So they were like, okay, yeah, we've had our fun and we went out. But it gave us the opportunity, speaking of like a home game versus maybe a stream, we knew we were coming to a finale and I knew I had loads to get through. So I was just like, this can't happen in the world. The only way for this to happen is they're not powerful enough to like win. Nor that you ever have to be either, but like they're not even powerful enough to have a conversation with the person. They're against an archfey who was like, no, you're good. Like, you guys are idiots. And actually, the entire time, the big bad thought the party were helping them. They were like, because they kept doing things that was like in their favor. It's like, oh, you guys, you're the best. Thank you so much. Like, surely you're on my side. You wouldn't have done all these things otherwise. And they were like, what? It's like, yeah, that helped me. Like, loads. So, giving them a chance to drop into the notes was fun. I think it's a fun mechanic to steal if you're running a home game or a solo game. Like, use your notes as a map. I would love to see how other DMs get on with that little thing. I don't think it's something I'll do in every homebrew, but I do think it's something I'll bring back because it was just a fun little like, yeah, jump in, see what we do.
Just in case any of my players, and this goes to you, Ben, as well, are out there thinking, God, that'll be great. Declan's going to do that. I'm not doing that. You can piss right off. I'm not letting you run amok in my planning.
What's this thing? What's this thing?
No,
Oops, smash.
Twiggy B 111. I think with the length of your campaign too, you also get to know your PCs and their players more too. Would I assume that has an impact on your prep?
Yeah, I think you're probably better at answering that than I am. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes. Yes. That is my that is my answer. Does that have an impact on your prep? It does. I do. So before a campaign, I will talk to the players about their characters, the world, the story, because I will have gotten their backstories. I'll have seen what I wanted to do, and then go, okay, how do I now take what they've done and whack that into what I want to do? And then it becomes my story and their story, and now they're intrinsically linked. So that's the first thing I do, and then as the campaign progresses, I will check in, or if you're more a proactive player, you'll check in with me. Not pointing at anybody in particular, but you will. And I am very, very fortunate. I have players who really, really care about. I know every player cares about the character, but I have players that really, really care about their character and the world that character is in, and wants to see something for them, whether that's good, bad, or otherwise. And by checking in with the player, it is that thing of, hey, look, we're doing these things with your character. One, are you comfortable with that? Like, are you happy with the direction this is going? Is this something you want to maybe explore? And if not, great, let's pull back and see where we can, kind of like shepherd's crook you out of it and move on to the next thing. Or if you want to keep going with it, great, I will continue to push the story with this in mind, and what you want to do in mind. The trick there then is, well, what if you've got 4 players or 5 players and they all want their... I sometimes I get that right, sometimes I don't get that right at all. That's a juggling act. And I never wanted, particularly with Romancing the Dungeon, I never wanted to feel like, well, season 1 is the Nate season, season 2 is the Hephaestus season. I definitely think there are key storylines throughout those seasons that are kind of more heavily centered around a character, but because of the nature of the game we are playing, it's a party, and the party are all swooped along for that ride, and I'm very, very fortunate that my players will all kind of like sweep in and offer their 2 cents to that, for that character or for that moment. So with season 3 underway, I have spoken to every player to kind of go, well, this is the end of this campaign. This is not the end of Romancing the Dungeon. This is the end of this campaign in Romancing the Dungeon. What is your character's end goal at this point? It's not that you're getting that end goal, but what is the thing that they see in the distance that they are working towards? And I will take that now and drive it into your heart, and make you weep for telling me. But I will, in fact, my goal now is to kind of, okay, take that thread, and try and weave them together. And in some cases, the thread will snag, and we won't get the outcome. But I promise you, it'll still be worthwhile. Like, there'll be a reason why you don't get to do the thing that you want to do, because in the next session you went and you did this, and that's kind of counter to what you just asked me, and there's ramifications and consequences. So long answer, sorry, short answer.
No, I think it's a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's to balance that answer out, because that's about like characters and giving the player characters what they want. The player side of things, something I love when I'm prepping is like I had Wes on my table, played Arlington, he was a bugbear barbarian, just throwing hordes at him and just being like, go for it, man. Like, knowing that as a person, it was a like fulfillment for them at the table to be like, I swing my big axe and I do kick-ass stuff. I was like, right, I'm going to put in like opportunities to swing your big axe and do kick-ass stuff. Same with Hook, or Keelan, who's played Hook. big sorcerer, liked big explosions, things to be able to like put in some things that can go boom. Because the nice thing is, you've put it there for your players. The players will also have that feeling of like, one, they might recognize that you've put it in. If they don't, they'll be like, I'm so smart. I used the thing that they thought I wasn't going to use and I made it explode. Either way, everyone's having fun and it's a good time. So it is when you get to know your players and the kind of stuff they like to do, it's an easy way to spotlight them. And speaking of balancing doesn't necessarily mean like time on screen. Like if you stopwatched everyone and you were like, oh, I only gave that person 20 minutes and that person 20 minutes. For some people, it's like 5 minutes of just being a hero fulfills them for the week or 2 weeks or month until you sit down and play again. And for others, it might be a 15 or 20 minute like role-playing scene or like intrigue scene or like finding out information, which like someone else at the table might be like, wow, 20 minutes. I can't believe you had to go through that. And that player's like, I didn't have to go through it. I loved doing it. So I think the more you know your players, the more you can give them moments like that. But take a little note out of Declan's book and put a little consequence in that moment. Because it's without stakes, it's not fun. It's a big lesson I had to learn. Like giving your friends everything they want, they'll eventually go, well, this is now like giving a kid too much sweets and their stomach gets sick. Like you need to have a little bit of like working for the thing you want to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, see, I think my approach to player and player character is, I often see like, because I was going to make a joke. It's like, oh, players are people. Oh, that's new. I don't remember seeing that in the DM's guide. Your players have feelings. Do they?
No, that doesn't sit right. Weird.
I love drama. And I love getting to, because again, the DM is a player. Like that's everybody seems to like, not everyone seems to forget that, but it's one of those things that kind of gets sidelined. It's you're in charge, you're the one running it. You're like, no, I'm playing too. Mm-hmm. I'm playing too, and this is my story. This is your story, and now let's make our story. And part of that is the bad guy's not going to give you what you want unless there's something in it for them. And even then, it's the Eldritch Blast. That's how you're going to take down that mountain, suckers. Those and they're not gotcha moments. They're not nice. That's the reason they're the BBEG. That's the reason why they're doing what they're doing. I love seeing my plan, my prep get completely, and I oftentimes, if you see me on stream when it happens, I'm like, oh gosh damn it, no. Inside I'm like, yes, absolutely love it when there's an example from Monday night where Kat, who plays Mooney in Beyond Horizon's Edge, rolled a nat 1 on an Arcana check after encountering a kind of a strange woman who there was a powerful magics there was things happening around her presence, and it was towards the end of the session, and Kat rolled a nat 1. I didn't know that was going to happen. Kat didn't know that was going to happen, but I was like, great, okay, now I'm going to say this thing, and this is going to be another little thing here. And after the session, I remember I said to Kat, I was like, hey, was that okay with you? Are you okay with that? And that wasn't a problem for them, and it wasn't a problem for me. And now I have to go, okay, well, what is the thing that's going to happen next? And it was completely unplanned, and that was on the actual mechanic. That was just on the dice roll, and letting that kind of let those things dictate. There's a very famous moment in season 2 where Louise, who plays Fia, realizes that she's in a magical house that does everything for them. So she asks the house to translate a book that she has had for a long time, that she has not been able to figure it out. And I was like, it's a magical house. I don't want to say no to this because that's a really good idea. I tell you what, roll a d20 and we'll see what happens. Because again, my take on that was the house has kind of just started to repair itself. It's not fully there yet. Rolled a nat 20. And the house was designed to serve. And so what's it going to do? It's going to give all of itself to do the one thing that it was asked to do, and it's going to take an immense amount of power to do that. The house destroys itself, but from that they learned a huge amount. They learned a huge thing. The characters learned something really, really important. That moment completely and totally unscripted. That moment totally, completely, like, I didn't know that was going to happen, and I didn't know that was going to have massive impacts. There are certain things that I know are going to happen. You put a bunch of crystals in front of Sam Monaghan, who plays Nate. He's going to fucking touch them, and he's going to make other people touch them. That you know those things are going to happen. But those other little moments, they're never that's never a case of, oh man, there goes my prep. Oh man, there goes. I always see that as, oh yes, here's the turn. Here's where the story is going to take a new direction.
Yeah, you can't prep around dice rolls. You just can't do it. And if you try to, you'll have less fun.
Yeah,
it's leave room in your prep for the opposite happening, because if you need to be like, oh, this is behind a such and such DC check, but it needs to happen, don't put it behind a DC check.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
But if it's and always give, like, if you're especially in an intrigue campaign, like multiple clues. It's surprising how when you know the answer, it's obvious, and it's not obvious to anyone else. We probably have time for like one more topic, and I was thinking, because it's a short one, the difference between, we talked a lot about streams. It's where our kind of bread and butter of where people who are watching this right now know us from. But potentially, if there is any differences between prepping for a stream or a podcast and prepping for like a home game.
Can I be weird and say yes and no?
Yes and no.
Okay. There's a fundamental difference, but it doesn't really change anything. Okay, so I know that it's like, if you're sitting there like, what the fuck is he talking about? When you are creating a stream or a podcast and you are using TTRPG as the backbone for that, you're obviously creating it for consumption. You're creating it for you and your friends. If you're part of the D800, it's you and Declan's mom listening to it. And even then, she doesn't listen to it. I pop quizzed her once; she doesn't listen to it at all. But
yeah, I love those little friends of yours. It's that show you do with Ben
and the Taoiseach.
Yes, yeah. the new Taoiseach.
But so you're creating something for consumption. You're creating something for an audience, and there is that thing of, oh well, there's an audience, guys. There's people watching us. There's people listening to us. So we gotta be funny. It's gotta be this production thing, and that's true to a certain point. Like, you have to have good audio. Like, I don't care about the visuals. Mm-hmm. If the visuals are a bit choppy, or if it's a bit low res, that's fine. If the audio is a bit on the they're going through a wind tunnel, I'm not going to be able to stick around a whole pile. And I'll always give an episode, or particularly a new series, I'll always give them like 2 or 3 episodes to see, do they figure it out. Mm-hmm. In the case of Romancing the Dungeon season 1, you have to give us halfway through. But it's a new dynamic, right? Because it's you, the players, and people outside that room that are going to listen and watch. Why do I say it's a difference, but it's fundamentally the same? Because that audience see them as a player, don't see them as a passive consumer of just someone sitting there kind of going, or on their commute listening to it, or in the evening watching it while they're making dinner or whatever it might be. They're another person at the table, and your goal as a DM should always be: is everybody around this table enjoying themselves? Is everybody around this table invested in what's happening? Are we having fun? We don't have to be laughing. It could be a very serious moment. We could be dealing with an NPC death or a PC death or some big reveal. Okay, it could be quite a heavy moment, but is everybody around that table invested? The 4 players and the 5th, the audience member sitting there, are they just as invested? And if you prep with the party, the players in mind, and you just hold on to the fact that the audience, the 1 of them, the 5 of them, the 10 of them, the 20,000 of them, whatever it might be, prep for them as just a 5th player at the table or the 6th player at the table. They're not rolling dice, but they are just as interested. They are just as invested. They are just as switched on as the 4 people around you rolling the dice. Work with them in mind. That's my that's always been my approach to this. Is I'm not making content for an audience, because if that was the case, I would sit down and I would write a script and I would do it that way. I talk about my session notes as scripts because I think Romancing Dungeon tends to be more of an audio drama. We cut out a lot of the I roll for this, I do a little bit of that. We cut out a lot of that. We're aiming more for the drama side of it, but it's easily 70-80% improv in that, like, things happen like that. It's not that the audience comes second. It's just I just see the audience as somebody else sitting at the table. They're the silent person at my table. I don't know, Ben, if that's the same for you and how it affects your prep.
No, I think it's a great way to do it. We had 2 rules before every episode of Homebrew and before doing the show, which is like there's 2 rules. 1, rule 0, we need to be having fun. 2, there's an audience here. Remember that. Like, there's people watching, there's people like actively taking time out of their day. They could be doing anything else. Have they seen The Wire? It's great. Like, if they haven't, like, they could be doing anything in the world and they've decided to spend a couple of hours with us. That's precious. Let's respect that. And let's put on a show for them because of that. And I think treating them as a player from a DM prep kind of point of view is that you can throw in as the DM, like, down the corridor, you see a swish of purple hair and you smell, elderflower in the air. And the players might be like too engrossed in whatever they're doing, checking spells or whatever. And we're like, what was that? Okay, whatever. But the audience member, those people who are clued in, because they're more attentive than your players, they're actively listening, will go, that was a glimpse of such and such from this episode before. And they'll love that little moment. So that's where it makes a difference. You don't need to put those like things in a home game. You don't need little asides. And equally, like, from a player point of view at the table, I don't need to like spike the mic and be like, hey, listeners, this is fucking bullshit. Like, what the fuck's going on? Or after a particularly emotional scene, kind of like doing a lean in and going, wow, that was pretty rough. Everyone okay? Yeah, everyone's okay. Okay, cool. Just to reassure the audience that it's like, if they need to, again, because the stakes are there, sometimes being like, we're all totally fine, by the way, breaks the immersion a little bit, because it's like, oh yeah, there's people behind. Players are people. But there are times where it's warranted, or like a little bit later in an episode, to be like, oh, that thing earlier, yeah, everyone's fine, don't worry about it. Like, because people will be genuinely, a lot of our friends listen, they'll be like, I hope Declan's okay, I hope Ben's okay, or like, wow, that was pretty rough, I hope they're not in a foul mood. 2 things to remember: it was months ago for us when you were listening, so like, one long in the future. And 2, any table I run and any table Declan runs, I hope we've established enough of a safety net to say, whoa, no thanks. And yeah, so it's just nice to have that in place. I'm almost certain that's me up. I've reached the end of my prep.
I reached the end of my prep about 20 minutes ago. And look at us going anyway. You wouldn't think it, I hope. Wow, that Declan guy really went off script. I think that's a nice place, particularly if you are considering. And here's the other thing: if you are watching this, kind of going, oh, you know what, I'm considering starting a stream. I'm considering starting a podcast. Reach out to us. Like, literally, reach out. Just if you're like, can I take a little bit of your time some evening? Well, I can't say I'm free every evening. I'm not, but I'm happy to sit with you and to talk about it. And you can message us on Discord or wherever it might be. I feel like I can say it for Ben as well. We love talking about this stuff. It's why we have Ben and Declan on a roll. It's something that we're both very, very interested in and passionate about. So if I can share any of bits of tidbits or advice or anything to help you start your thing, then ask. Also, it might feel like, oh, I'm not going to do what those guys do. Cool. Do it your way.
Advice can come from any, if it's a totally different thing to what we do, but you still want to reach out to us, like, maybe that outside perspective can be useful. This might be, I don't know if this is a good idea, so you don't have to take this advice, but if you wanted to, like, if you're dipping your toe into DMing or dipping your toe into playing on a stream point of view, like one of the main reasons I'm here today on this show and in Romancing the Dungeon is because I got involved in the D8 Dungeon Drive way back when. And I have a kind of weird habit of like play testing systems, like doing something where I'm like, I'll just play this system, or making one up and like rolling with it to see if there's anything in it. I mean, there's no reason, you don't have to tell us, that you couldn't like play test an idea or a plot or a story. Just be like, wonder if this would make a good entertaining little show or a good home game. Is there something meaty in this? Run it at the Drive. There'll be no guarantee of the exact players you have, so like don't bring a cast of people because you will be kind of mixed and matched with the fun of it is the collaboration between everyone. But you can definitely try some stuff out, and it's all for a great cause.
Yeah. Last year was the first year, Ben, that you weren't running a game.
Yes. Where was I? Croatia.
I still remember both of the games that you did the first 2 years. Like you did Sky Tigers Year 1, which was phenomenal, and then I cannot remember the name of it, but I think it was Camp Merit.
I made it up because it's not a real system, but I called it Merit. But there's Sky Tigers. If you care to,
that was
a bottle of beer.
They were, and like
this was one made for me.
It was phenomenal. Like both those games were they always stick in my mind as really fun sessions. So if you are considering, and I don't know if Dylan's still here, but Dylan, I will be wrecking your head about something. So brace yourself. But if you are considering, if you want to get involved, if you head on over to the D8 Dungeon Discord, myself and Amber are in the middle of organizing it, and we've opened applications for DMs, players, and anyone that wants to volunteer to get involved early, but only on the Discord server. And anyone that signs up to be a player now will get first contact when the games list goes out. So anyone that applies now goes on a first sign up sheet. You'll get first dibs, and then after that, then we open it to general public to apply for the games afterwards. All the games are aimed at raising money, so they are audience participation. They're very heavily kind of geared towards your donations change the outcome. And like so Amber takes care of like the PR, the marketing, kind of the administration, sponsorship, like this torrent of work. I get to do the fun stuff. I get to work with the DMs and the players. I get to do the easy stuff. While Amber does this mountain of stuff, I'm over here going la 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 la. It's great. But I've already seen some of the people that have applied to DM, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm excited. But we'd love more. Like we really would love more folks to get involved and to sign up to play and participate. So if that's like something you want to do, head over to the Discord server. I think it's server updates, either in show updates or server updates. In one of those channels, you will see a link to a Google Doc, which is where you apply for your place at the table. For D8 Dungeon Drive. I think, Ben, that's kind of all we have time for. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. And I also go need to apply. So, like, if we could, because I don't want those spaces to be taken up.
You got down apply. You got down apply. We were all.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah, you apply.
Let me see if there's any community news while we set up a raid. I'm sure there'd be some. But let me know when you're.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good too. We're gonna raid ampersand D20 after this. They're up and running, and they're on episode 8 of Homebrew Havoc. I figured it's a good space to drop into. So you shout to me whenever you're ready. I won't press the button until then.
You're going to hear the word keep on rolling, baby. Okay. And that's going to be...
It does take time to raid after we do that, so...
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well... To close out tonight's show, in local club and recreation news, there's been a bust-up at the community centre. The Dwarven Toastmasters claim it is their ancestral birthright to have access to the main hall every second Sunday of the month, and are unwilling to make any concessions to the cult of the Undying Light, followers of the Equinox, and occasional Stitch and Bitch Club. This is despite the cult producing the application form that shows they booked the main room at the beginning of time itself in preparation for the TriStar eclipse, and they can't use the back room because the stairs don't line up there. Oh, sorry. Redaction. The stars don't line up there. Well, best of luck to the cult. I know I wouldn't want to go head to head with the stubbornness of a dwarf, but more on this story as it develops. That's all from us in the studio this week. We'll see you next time, but until then, keep on rolling, baby. Was that enough time?
I think so. We're starting the raid there. But while the raid starting, I will...
Oh, of course, people need to join into the raid.
But I will go to the thanks for watching screen. So thank you for watching. We will see you in 2 weeks' time.